Ivy Slater, and you're listening to Her Success Story Podcast, a show where gutsy businesswomen share their success journey. Hi, this is Ivy Slater. Welcome to today's episode of Her Success Story. Today, I have a fabulous guest coming in from the Pacific Northwest. Karen McCall and I had the lovely pleasure of being introduced a bunch of months ago and have built a really lovely relationship where we talk about girl things as well as business things. Karen has revolutionized the financial counseling industry with her highly acclaimed financial recovery process, which liberates people from their beliefs, their attitudes, and behaviors that keeps them stuck in a self-defeating relationship with money. Now, anybody who has been listening to Her Success Story for 3.5 plus years here know I am passionate and very strongly believe in the importance of our relationship with our finances, of being clear in our numbers and our money story. So Karen is the founder of the Financial Recovery Institute, as well as the founder of MoneyGrit, that she is going to share a little bit about today. But first, Karen, welcome for coming on and joining us from the Pacific Northwest.
Thank you, Ivy. It's so lovely to be here. I've been looking forward to it.
So tell me about, we're going to get into everything about what you do, but let's take a step back for a second and look at why you do this and why this is important to you. Because when I shared a moment ago that this is really important to me, I will always be open and share about why, because, sometimes money and women are difficult. I know I've had my issues, and as financially successful as I've had some really difficult times with finances in my past and, rising through it. So how did this start for you?
Well, let's just go back about 37 years ago.
Just yesterday.
Yeah, right. And I was working in corporate America in San Francisco. I had a big corner office in a big, round, beautiful office building. Wore, wonderful suits, carried my Italian briefcase. And if you would have seen me, you would have thought, wow, what a success. But I had a dirty little secret. And that secret was that I was a complete mess with money. I had been divorced a few years earlier, and I got the largest amount of money that I had ever seen. I mean, by today's standards, it wasn't really that much. But what I did is I just kind of stuck my head in the sand, and I didn't know what to do with that money. So I just basically kind of lived the life of the rich and famous for a few months, and then the money was gone. During that time, when I first got the divorce settlement, my uncle asked me, he said, "Are you investing in mutual funds?" I didn't know what mutual funds were, so I just said yes. I was too embarrassed to ask. So this particular day that I came home from work, there was an eviction notice on my door in San Francisco.
Ouch.
And on top of my refrigerator was a big bowl of bills, dark wood, deep bowl, everything went in there. And so the time came where when I came home that day and saw this eviction notice, I thought, okay, this is really getting serious. I need to figure out what to do. So I opened a bottle of wine, put on Dr. Robert Schuller's Possibility Thinking, and I just brought that bowl down and I just listed everything, threw away all the duplicates. And that was really the beginning for me to come out of that money coma. It was more than a money fog. It was a money coma, and say, okay, what the heck am I going to do? So after I did this, in those days, we didn't have Google. We had the yellow pages. Right. So
I remember it well.
I looked in the yellow pages and I saw financial people and I saw budget counselors. So I thought, well, obviously the budget counselors. I tried that. And what they do is they take your paycheck, they pay your bills, and they give you a little bit of an allowance. And that lasted about 2 minutes because I just couldn't stick to it. So I knew that I had a serious problem. And so I really started looking for a solution. And I kind of created my own little recovery path. I went to therapy, and I went to a 12-step program that deals with money. And I got so excited about it. And at that time, I thought, I really don't like my job. And so I started taking a career exploration class, and I thought maybe I want to be a therapist. And what I discovered in that class, I wanted to help people like me. There were probably a lot of people like me that weren't ready for the financial planners, that wouldn't work with the budget counselors because there was too many layers of the problem to deal with that had to be dealt with. And so I thought, I bet there's a lot of people caught in that gap like me. And I decided that this is what I wanted to do. And so in 1988, I decided I'm going to get serious about this. And so I started dreaming of starting a business and helping other people. February 2nd, 1989, I had my very first client.
And okay, so I always have to ask this always, in business owners, it's like, okay, where does that first client come from?
Yes. What I did in those days was, and you talk about this in your 7 traits of success, successful people, leaders, you talked about relationships. So what I did is I contacted everyone I knew who might be a referral source for me. And a lot of those people were therapists. And so I would say, I couldn't afford to take people to lunch, but I could invite them to tea, or I could go to their office. And I'd put together this little program, and I said, this is what I'm doing, and I'm wondering if you have clients that might be interested in this work. The interesting thing, Ivy, many of those therapists became clients, because at least at that time, when people went to school to become a therapist, they didn't learn anything about business or money.
Nope.
And many of them don't want to work in agencies. They want to have their own business. So they were ill-equipped to do that.
And especially, there's very few, there's so many professional service, advanced education programs. If it's therapy, if it's legal, it's doctors, we go to school for so much. And then we quote unquote, open a practice, hang a shingle or whatever, but there's no business knowledge, and business is hunkered down in the financial movement of money.
Well, the number one predictor for success in business is your relationship with money. And so it is so, so important. What I discovered, the biggest surprise was, and when I think about it now, it's good that it was a surprise. I mean, it's good that I found out. A lot of people came to see me, not just people caught in that gap, but people who just felt, yeah, I resonate with that. I've never dealt with my relationship with money. And so, one of the therapists referred a woman to me who had inherited several $1 million a few years before and was hemorrhaging her money away, and she was on her last 100,000. So I realized I had to really start expanding my idea and my understanding of people and their relationship with money, from all walks of life.
So tell me a little bit about, you founded the Financial Recovery Institute and MoneyGrit. So you went from working with, so my assumption, and so clarify this, please, working with clients one-on-one into saying, there's more people I can help. How did you get from A to Z, so to speak?
I feel I was really lucky. Again, another relationship. At that point, there were a lot of, these big conferences, and so I went to one, and I met a woman. And probably a couple hundred people there. I don't even remember the woman who put it on in San Francisco, but I was in a group, and this was a couple of months after I started my business. And I met a woman at that time. Her name was Barbara Stanley. And now she's Barbara Houston. And Barbara was writing for the San Francisco Business Times. And so as we introduced ourselves, I said, well, I help people who want to overcome overspending, under earning. They may have inherited wealth. This is what I do. And she's like, oh, I want to interview you. She worked at that time for the San Francisco Business Times. I had no money to start my business. When Barbara's articles started coming out, I copied those. I would go to the copy mat place and I would make copies, and that was almost my business card at the beginning. And I went to many, many networking events. I joined National Speakers Association. I started meeting people there. And I would speak any place that people asked me for nothing. I mean, I just put myself out there. And I want
to interrupt and jump in here for a second, because it takes grit
Mhm.
and to put yourself out there no matter what, because there's a huge amount of vulnerability there. And when you're talking about money, that's not an area we talk about with confidence, many of us. And to be able to say, you know what, my passion about doing this trumps my uncomfortableness of the process.
You're absolutely right. I was fortunate. The man I was dating at that time is my husband. We've been together for over, 30, I think 33, 34 years. And he's the first person I shared my idea with. And fortunately, he said, oh my gosh, you would be so good at this. And he actually said the name, Financial Recovery. There were other people that I shared I was doing this, and then I couldn't hang out with them because they said, you can't just start this. You've got to do a pilot. You have to test it. You have to do all of these things. And I've always been a person who
does it.
I just go for it. And you learn, you can't learn everything ahead of time. You learn as you're building your business. You learn about business, you learn about what works and what doesn't work. And you make tons of mistakes and you spend money that doesn't
always work. And you're willing to make the mistakes because they're not mistakes, they're learning curves.
They really are. They really are.
And you embrace it. And instead of shying away from it, you're embracing the knowledge it's giving you to take it to the next step.
Yeah.
I love it. So share a little bit. Okay. So this was 30 some odd years ago. Yeah. Where's your organization today?
Well, wonderful that you asked. Can I just back up for a moment and tell just a little part of the business? It was the biggest surprise for me. I knew to help people with their relationship with money that I had to not only look at their belief systems and attitudes about money, but that we really needed to touch the money, really touch the money, and so I had at the beginning a paper and pencil system where people would just track everything they were spending. Yeah. We'd do spending plans. And what I discovered, and I would have never known that I had to go into the software business, but I created a program at that time called MoneyMinder, paper and pencil system. It evolved to Excel. And in 2013, we launched it as the first web-based money management program. And then this year, 2021, we launched MoneyGrit, which is a complete rewrite of it. So I am now a software business owner. Never, ever, ever expected that. So that's
I want to kind of jump in here for a second, Karen, because you never expected it, but because your attitude has been one of showing up in 100%, and as I've gotten to know you, your commitment to just keep on learning and growing. Absolutely. As opposed to, you're not a woman who buries her head in the sand. Maybe you did at one point in your life, and you learn from that experience and you have shown up consistently. And we've all done that at some point in our lives, as opposed to shy away and be embarrassed about it. We show up in spite of it and grow because of it.
Right. When I was watching your 7 Traits of Great Leaders, I went, check, think big, see possibilities, check. Write down specific goals, check, and just check. But there was one that really stood out for me, and that was number 3, creating a plan.
Yeah.
And so may I just talk a little bit about that?
I love a good plan. Let's talk. I could talk plan. We could probably go 3 episodes talking plans. Let's talk a little bit about plans.
Okay. So I knew that it was important for people to not just track their spending as a rearview mirror, look at their money, that it was important for them to plan and then track against their money so that they can explore when they deviate from their plan. Is it because they didn't plan enough, because they've never tracked? Is it because something came up they really, truly could not have anticipated? Or 3, I thought I wanted to the heck with my spending plan, because now you see your behaviors when you're tracking against your plan, and now you know what you're dealing with. You start getting to the point where you can see the triggers that are doing this. But the thing that I discovered was for business owners, they had a backdoor because I created a personal money management system. So I knew within the first 3-4 months that I needed to do the same thing for business owners so that they wouldn't say, oh yeah, that's fine. I can stick to this plan, but I'll just run it all through my business. And so when you said number 3, creating a plan, financial, marketing, and sales plan, that's the way that I work, that I teach my money coaches now. You asked me what I'm doing now is I've been training money coaches. I started fairly soon. People wanted to learn to do what I was doing. And now I have what's called the World Class Money Coach Training Program. And what I teach the people who work with business owners is use this software to do your business plan, because you're going to go through and you're going to see all of the needs of your business. You're going to evaluate every area of your business, your equipment. Do you have a good headset? Do you have a good camera? If you're doing online Zoom meetings with people, if you're a photographer, do you have the right equipment? Where are people doing without things that are really important for them to grow and sustain their business and also earn enough money to pay themselves a really nice salary? So I have 2 versions of MoneyGrit, and it was just absolutely crucial. What I saw when I wrote my last book, I sat down on my office floor and I pulled out a bunch of client files to see what did people say they came in for coaching for. And I knew it was, I want to get out of debt. I want to learn about savings. But almost everyone said something like, I want to look at my relationship with money. I want to improve my relationship with money. I want to become a grown-up with money. And so the title of the book is Financial Recovery, Developing a Healthy Relationship with Money. But what I also saw, and it wasn't that I didn't know it, but there was something about just sitting here doing this research in my files. Almost everyone who was a business owner, who was working on their personal finances in this way and their business finances in this way, their businesses really changed and grew. And so that was, a revelation to me. And that's sort of what I feel my legacy, I'm hoping, is now I'm creating my programs so a lot of my coaches can do that. My husband and I in 2019 thought we were heading to Europe for a 3-year trek. I can still do my business from any place in the world. And we had to come back after 10 months because of COVID. And so I'm looking forward at this stage of my life to going back and finishing that trip. And so now it's wonderful. Some of these women that I trained 24 years ago are going to be some of the leaders in the training program. So
you're passing this forward to the next generation that will pass it forward to the next. And that's truly in business, building legacy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because it's hunkered in the give. And Karen, one of the things, I know you were referencing of the relationships, and I know my successes in life, my successes in business have been hunkered down to the relationships I have built and how they've continued to give forward.
Mm-hmm.
You have to be dedicated to staying in the giving and staying in the showing up. As we continue to show up in our relationship with money, as we continue to show in our relationships in business, in our personal world, and all those relationships continue to flourish.
Absolutely. And now, we through COVID, we were all, stuck at home, but we still had this wonderful way, of staying connected. So relationships are absolutely crucial. We have to have people in our life that support us, and we want to have those professional relationships too that help us see even more possibilities and become even more expansive. And that's what I've loved about my work is so often when people come in to get some help, they're in a lot of deprivation. They're doing without things that are really important to them. They may be kind of cobbling together solutions to their life, and they're all sometimes are also, especially business owners, working, overdoing. And all of those things, doing without, making do, and overdoing, leave a person really depleted. And so the goal is, hey, what do you really need? You know, where are the longings and the cravings that you want more of something in your life? And by the way, without getting in touch with what those needs are, there's a chance that the attempt to fill those needs are going to be spent on the shiny, bright objects that are never going to touch the deepest feelings of what my needs are. So I say, you can never get enough of what you don't need, and you can never get enough of the wrong thing. And so in doing spending plans, part of MoneyGrit has a needs and a wants list built in, both for the personal version and the business version.
Business version.
Mhm.
I love that. And I love how you're hunkered down in the plan. And one of the things I admire is how, you know, the pandemic might have didn't stop your travels, interrupted your travels. That's all. Took a pause. Maybe you'll pick some different places to go in the past, you know, year plus, and doing some research on other places. And how you have taken this and been able to really take this time to update your platforms, update the business for the longevity of it. So it's not that you didn't pause, your travel pause, but you took this time to really continue to update and be current in your business.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
So, Karen, how can our listeners continue to learn out more about you, about the Financial Recovery Institute, and about MoneyGrit?
Okay, so I have two websites. One is moneygrit.com, and that's where you can learn about MoneyGrit. And the Financial Recovery Institute, financialrecovery.com, is where you can find out about world-class money coach training and find out about money coaches, and either one of those websites. And my email address is Karen@moneygrit.com and Karen@financialrecovery.com.
Well, listeners, the one thing I have learned over 25 plus, probably 30 years, but we'll just call it 25 plus of being a business owner, is we cannot bury our head in the sand around the conversation of money. I'll always say, for me, numbers tell a story. Are you willing to open to the book and read the book?
I love that you say that, because it's so true. The numbers do tell the story. That's why we can't look at our relationship with money without really, really being involved with the money. Can't just be talking about our mindset.
No. So I love that you're doing this. I love that it's a resource. And I very much love that neither of us likes the word budget, because I think it's limiting. I think it's stifling, and it's a way, it's like living on a diet your entire life. It's never going to happen.
Yes.
So listeners, check Karen out further. And if you see something of interest, leave a note. I'll always say, by popping into her success story, take a moment as we conclude and say, what are your takeaways from listening today, from showing up here and actually listening to this recording, listening to this podcast? What did you take away, and what are the actions you're going to implement on it? Because that's where true success is. Feel free to leave us a message in the show notes. And of course, hit subscribe. We come into your inbox every Monday morning with fabulous episodes like today with Karen McCall. Karen, thank you again.
Thank you, Ivy. It was my pleasure to be here.